how did you come to publish Obama's
Well,
book?
that book has a very interesting publishing history. So it was published in 1994. Dreams from My Father was published. And this was pre-politics. He was just starting to get involved in kind of local politics in Illinois, Chicago area. But he'd been at Harvard Law School he'd been to. And he was commissioned to write this memoir in his early 30s. Publishes the book. It has a modicum of success in America and then goes out of print. And then he gives his famous speech in 2004 at the Democratic nomination, where he's this kind of young senator from Illinois. And he gives this speech that kind of lit the world up, particularly in America. People were like, wow, who is this guy? And so a smart editor working at Crown called Rachel Clayman, she was Googling around Barack Obama. And so it's like, we published his memoir fucking 10 years ago, and it was out of print. So they reprinted it. And I have a very close publishing partner in Australia called Michael Hayward, runs a great independent called Text, which Canongate owned 70% of for a chunk of time. We were in direct business in that kind of way for a 7-year period, but we've always co-published a lot of books together. He did the Myth series, he did the Bible series. We've shared writers and books since we first met in 1997 at a book fair in Chicago. And I was actually in the Bay Area. I was in Berkeley at a sales conference because we used to work very closely with Grove Atlantic in America, publishing our books in the States. So I've been doing this sales conference with PGW in Berkeley. And I remember I'm walking in San Francisco and I've just had some great lunch, eating amazing oysters and stuff. And I'm walking along and I get a call out of the blue from Michael. And I'm outside a bookshop when he calls me just by complete random chance. He calls me and says, hey, Jamie, how you doing? Is this now a good time to talk? I'm like, absolutely. I'm just strolling in San Francisco. And he's like, I've just read this memoir by this guy called Barack Obama. And I don't know if you've heard of him, and I don't know where he's going, but this is a beautiful memoir. And I really want to buy the rights, the Australian, New Zealand rights. And it's not been published in the UK either. And at this stage, we owned a big chunk of the business. It's not that he was needing to get kind of my approval. It was simply
just excited about it.
Excited. And you should read it. As I'm talking to him, I kid you not, they've got a cutout of Barack Obama in the window of the bookshop that I'm standing outside. And I'm like, you're not going to believe this. And The Audacity of Hope had just come out at this point, which was his next book. That was the phrase he used at the Democratic nomination. It was The Audacity of Hope was this thing that captured people's imaginations. And I said to Michael, no kidding, I'm looking at Barack Obama right now. I walk in, I get a copy of both the new book, The Audacity of Hope, and Dreams from My Father. Read Dreams from My Father on the way back to the UK. We end up buying the rights for both books. So we originate the new book, The Audacity of Hope, but then do Dreams from My Father. And then he declares he's going to run against Hillary. And to begin with, it's like, well, that's great that he is. That'll be good for the book, but no expectation that he could possibly kind of take on the Clinton machine and he was black and all the reasons, but for reasons that have obviously been well documented, what he did and at a grassroots level. And interestingly, I've always thought if he hadn't written that book, he wouldn't have got in the White House. Because by the time the election actually happened, that book had sold like 4 million copies in America. And if you read that book, you get a sense of that person that is very attractive, that's someone who's open. And there were lots of factors that led to him getting into the White House. But I would say it was a significant factor, that memoir, in people trusting him, believing him, and realizing this is someone who's got a vision for this country that is a vision that I kind of subscribe to as well.